Here we are, Leo and Christy for the Leo Zagami show. A very special show before Halloween. We need to warn a few people what's going on behind the scenes. There is a Halloween ritual which has been planned by Satanists and witches. That will be the main subject of the day. Of course, we will cover also other news. So how was the week, Christy?
It was good.
Okay, so who are the sponsors of today's show?
Nalgarzada Minta and Bruce Kodish.
Okay, guys, after the 5th of November, we will be changing format. So no longer a full 90 minutes of news. We might have just 30 minutes of news, and during the week, 1 hour of exploring the Illuminati occult back with our occult subjects. Of course, guys, this also depends on you because we need absolutely sponsors. Otherwise, we risk, let's say, the suspension of the show at the end of this year. Just so you know, we haven't really received that much. And a way to support us is, of course, to purchase our books, Volume 11, the latest book, but also Volume 10. And today we will be touching on a subject which is also briefly discussed in Volume 7.
Thanks to everybody who bought the books this week.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. That's the best way to support this show is to buy the book.
Yes, absolutely.
Books, because there's more than one.
Yeah, we have also, as you know, Christie's cooking book, and we will be discussing also briefly this book, Volume 9, because this week I published on leozagami.com a very in-depth article about the threat of quantum computers. But the latest article, which you should check out, is instead about this Halloween ritual planned by the Satanists. So here we go with this very particular subject. We are probably the only ones who are discussing this subject. I know this
really?
Doesn't seem to be anybody, though the threat is real. You see, I mean, we are here in a sort of quiet before the storm moment, and after the 5th of November, things might go, hopefully not the way a lot of people are saying. I mean, there's a lot of alarmism. There is a lot of civil war talk all over the place, though I think a lot of people don't have a clue what they are invoking, because a civil war is a very serious business. And I'm
not
sure,
like a game on it.
no, and it's definitely not you on the computer chat here with a nickname and in the being all safe at home. I mean, it's a very different kind of scenario which we hope will never materialize. But of course, they want to stop Donald J. Trump, and for this reason, they are now even willing to use magic. And so here we are with an article which, like I said, I just published on leozagami.com. Here we go. Yes, there seems to be no live show on Rumble at the moment, but we will be sorting this out, hopefully. No. Yes, let me...
That's our other channel.
Well, I mean, of course, we need to sort out our Rumble because it seems like maybe that something is missing. Yes. So what should we do?
We need Rumble.
We need the Rumble. Okay. Let me see if we can have a musical break and sort out this little problem we have with Rumble. So we have a musical break, of course, for you guys. Yes, I mean, we are always ready for a break, and we have always exclusive music, usually, that we like to use. This time it's by Speedy Champ. Speedy Champ. Ooh, a lot of dancing.
Like some techno up in that.
I started dancing. I got like all kind of sweaty. I was dancing around. Wow, man. Speedy Champ, Boat Trump, of course, 2024. This brief musical introduction. We are now also live on Rumble as requested by some of our viewers, also because Rumble is the place where we usually broadcast exclusively in the second part of the show. So it's very important to have it up and running. Sometimes, though, it's kind of like a little bit difficult with the StreamYard and Rumble, but it seems now it's fine. It's okay. Took off my.
Are you all right,
Yes. I mean, I'm having a Southern night fever here. Okay, so let's go to the subject of today, because a Halloween ritual is being planned by Satanists and witches to make Kamala president, and it's going to happen on Halloween. So this is really an unprecedented move. Each month there has been actually a ritual since Kamala became the nominee. They actually confirmed that with Kamala, the witches started to feel confident to go back to their old witchy ways. Now, there was a ritual that was devised.
He doesn't feel well. Okay, guys, we're just going to say it. He doesn't feel well.
What do you mean?
You're sweating, man.
Well,
I'm watching the sweat pour off your body.
He
comes here and he's not feeling well. He's sick today. And so, you know,
the show must go on.
The show must go on, but,
okay.
You know, if you need a strip, if you need to take it off, just do it. Take this off.
No,
you don't need it.
Please. Okay,
all right.
So here we are, volume 7 of my confessions. This is where I discuss this subject. The subject which is of great importance because there is a Freemason which is called Michael M. Hughes that in 2017, after Trump, of course, took his oath of office and installed himself in the White House, these Satanists started to do rituals to bind him, and he eventually will publish a book about it. In this book, we have the whole ritual as is conducted by these witchy women and men also. In chapter 3, as you can see, there is this binding Trump, and they started this ritual at midnight on February 24, 2017, midnight EST, because that's the time in Mar-a-Lago, and so they decided to, in some way, to attack him from a backyard where they had a bonfire. 40 witches and warlocks, they gathered together, and this happened on the February 24, 2017. They devised this ritual, and after they devised this ritual, what happened was that the guy published the whole ritual on the internet, just thinking he will get a few likes. Instead, he got thousands of likes, he got endorsement of the mainstream media, and I'm going to show you what happened after that, because now they are not only doing this ritual, which I just mentioned, which is a ritual which ends up with Trump famous phrase, "You are fired." It's here. You can read this whole ritual. Christy.
Why do I have to read it? I don't want to read it.
Well, I would like to read it, but I need, of course, my glasses. So can you please get my glasses somewhere? Here they are. Okay. Okay, here we are with the glasses. Sorry, guys. We might be under some kind of magical attack. But
no, we're not.
Nobody stops Leo Zagami.
We are not. Nobody can attack us.
Okay. So there is this whole ritual in which they say, "In the name of all who walk, crawl, swim, or fly," and then they go into this bind them in chain, bind their tongues, bind their words, bind their wickedness. You are fired, you're fired, you're fired. That's the culmination of the ritual. Like I said, this is a ritual which became very popular and was carried on during the whole of Trump's first presidency. They stopped, of course, with the arrival of Joe Biden, but they started again with the arrival of Kamala as a nominee. So now there is actually a new ritual which they are devising, which for Halloween, which is a very creepy one, but we will discuss that further on. In the meantime, let me introduce you to this ritual, because this ritual has been carried on by these people who even got offended because Trump always talks about witch hunt, and they are witches, so they get very easily triggered. They are snowflake witches and warlocks, so they get. But the interesting thing is the involvement of a Freemason here. Michael Hughes is a Freemason and a member of the Società Rosicruciana in Civitatis Federatis, which is a Christian Rosicrucian organization where membership is by invitation only and is a regular mainstream Masonic affiliation. You have to be a Master Mason to join under invitation this specific version of the SRIA, which is very popular also in England. I collaborated with them back in the days. But the strange thing is that they claim to be Christian. Instead, Michael Hughes is also not so Christian, because he's a member of the OTO, and he was praised by none other than Lon Milo Duquette, the Deputy Grand Master of the OTO, who wrote an introduction, a brief introduction for him, praising this book and inviting people to, of course, put their money where their mouth is. Here is what Lon Milo said.
This one from
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Vote, organize, march, protest, boycott, resist, be an activist for your beliefs. Then put your magic where your mouth is. You might want to start by reading Magic for the Resistance.
I repeat, this is not any kind of magician. This is Lon Milo Duquette. We know him through his introduction, his commentaries on the books of Aleister Crowley, because the books of Aleister Crowley are published officially by the Ordo Templi Orientis Caliphate, which he is the Deputy Grand Master, one of the first members of this Grand Lodge that was launched in the second half of the 70s. So here is his introduction. There is also other interesting people like Gary Lanchman, which, by the way, is the former guitarist of Blondie's band, who has written many books, who also praises the initiative. These people are insane, let me tell you. And they even went during Trump's first presidency in front of Trump Tower. They are, of course, trying to bind Trump magically, but Trump is also defended. I mean, Trump has his own defense. But let's go into these witches outside the Trump Tower a few years ago.
I beseech thee in my name, Davy
Goodbye, Donald J. Trump. So that his malignant works, may fail utterly.
May fail utterly.
And evolving ways to protest is so important, because I think it's so easy to burn out from just marching all the time and yelling all the time and protesting all the time.
So this was happening in the first Trump presidency, and like I said, the mainstream media caught on this whole thing very early and started to amplify it. I'm going to show you a brief video from NBC that was even done from NBC News, so a national network that shows how this ritual, the elements to do these rituals, and interview some of the people involved in conducting this ritual, which became then known all over the United States. So it is important that we show some of these elements here. Of course, if I manage, because it's not on a downloadable format. So let's see if we can show it. Here we have the witches, or not. What we have here?
Can't tell really.
Yeah, well,
It could be just a commercial.
Yes, that's it. But very probably a commercial, but they're all witches anyway, because today's commercial are really something insane. Let me show you the ritual setup, and also this is the typical New Age witchy shop where they sell crystals and other things, and you can see the image of Trump, which is put in the center for the binding. And of course, we have a tarot, we have a candle, which is used. A head of a coven is giving her own explanation to NBC News. We want to remind everybody, though, that this binding ritual never really achieved anything. However, we saw that unfortunately Trump didn't manage to get into the White House after the 2020 elections, if that might be some kind of related effect. But they wanted to actually stop Trump. And you can see these are people that practice witchcraft and that unite against Donald J. Trump. They united back then, and they're doing it also now. In Salem is, of course, a place in Massachusetts that everybody knows because of the famous trials of Salem. Nearly 20 women, I think, mostly women, were then condemned and, of course, lost their life. It was a extreme move, let's say, back then.
Inquisition.
It was the sort of Inquisition in, of course, a territory which was under England, under Great Britain. It wasn't yet the United States of America. Let's not forget that, because Salem happened before 1776. It happened at the end of the 17th century. So let's see what they're doing in Salem today, where they mix modern witchcraft, feminism, and anti-Trumpism.
Witches have always been somewhat feminist. We have been fighting for the right to be treated correctly.
Witches are what men like Donald Trump are afraid of.
Witches. The word alone immediately conjures up certain images in our minds. But what does it really mean to be a witch today? Salem, Massachusetts, a place known for trying and executing accused witches, is now affectionately called Witch City. And it seems that a growing number of young women and some men are being drawn to a brand of witchcraft. And it's political.
I use the term witch to describe myself. I usually cite the acronym Woman in Total Control of Herself. I am the owner of House Witch Home and Healing in Salem, Massachusetts. I practice witchcraft. I pull tarot cards. I have crystals everywhere. I make shrines. I cast spells. I meditate. But it's sort of a political distinction, and I think it speaks to my radical feminism.
Both male and female witches are studying the craft under a longtime Salem witch and clairvoyant, Lorelei. You'll notice a significant difference in how the more traditional witches look and practice.
I'm what you call a natural witch. I started at about 12. My mother practiced. The thing about the new word feminist, it's a great thing, but it's something that we've been doing for years. So we're maybe a little different than the younger generation. We may not be as hardcore. I still want a gentleman to open the door for me.
And P and the man, maybe you always have romance, lust, and trust, so mote it be.
A spell basically is a prayer to the universe. We have chalices full of water. We have candles, something that represents the god, the goddess, just like you pray in church.
After the election, especially, I think what the witch is good for is being a force of divine feminine power, and witches are what men like Donald Trump are afraid of. So it's like this perfect symbol.
Around Erica's store has formed a coven made up of astrologists, Reiki masters, and healers, including Erica's fiancée, Melissa, who does Salem witch tours with a feminist focus.
Few deep breaths.
This isn't your grandmother's coven. It's youthful, light, and trendy. Though some are embracing the word, the term witch has been used to ignite fear and shame. The Salem witch trials of colonial Massachusetts started just when Europe's so-called witch craze was beginning to wind down. A combination of limited resources, of family rivalries, and extremely strict religious practices set the foundation for Puritans to blame the devil and quote-unquote devil worshippers for their problems. And more than 200 people, mostly widows or women with bad reputations, were accused of being witches, and 20 were executed. It wasn't until early 20th century that women's magazines started portraying witches as beautiful and desirable. This trend continued with the success of the TV show Bewitched in the 60s. The 60s also brought us a feminist group, Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell, or WITCH, who protested patriarchy by carrying out witch-themed political stunts. In 1985, Wicca, an offshoot of witchcraft, was recognized as a religion by the United States. In recent years, we've seen witches and non-witches publicly reclaiming the title.
The powerful are scared of this figure who has traditionally been pretty powerless, but now that's not the case.
Whether it's Trump or just, all these sexual assault cases, do you think that actually ends up creating more witches?
Totally. The Me Too movement, that's what you're seeing. It's dark, it feels bad, and now this is the only way that we're gonna start to heal it, is by, ripping this Band-Aid off and all coming together. And to me, that sounds like a coven of witches.
As young people become less religious in this country, witches like Lorelei and Erica continue to see their covens grow.
I love that witchcraft is getting big. I don't really make the distinction between somebody who's just doing it on social media and then somebody who's a real practitioner, because I think that at any point in time those two can switch. To people who don't think that it's real feminism or real witchcraft, I would say who made you in charge of what is feminism and what is witchcraft?
Thanks for watching.
Well, feminism was generated within the Theosophical Society. And the Theosophical Society was the place which also helped the birth of modern Satanism. Feminism is everything I despise from a woman, tell you the truth. This is really, I often say to Christy, feminism is something we never want to be associated with, because their values are anti-family, anti-Christian. And to see also this mix between anti-Trumpism, witchcraft, and feminism, it's definitely a diabolical union. These people are the typical New Age, sometimes kitchen witches, we can say, some of them. Others.
It's all very, very dangerous.
But it's all very dangerous. And behind it all, there is a guy who is a Freemason, who has devised this ritual. So, it's
dangerous for yourself, it's dangerous for your life, it's dangerous for your soul. Don't do it, guys. Just don't do that horrible stuff. It's so bad. You can walk away from it and ask for God's forgiveness. And if you haven't done anything too bad, maybe God will forgive you. But if you go past the point, there is a point of no return, and God, there's nothing you can do. So you need to get right with God and not do any of this stuff. I learned, I'm lucky because I was really, really, really sorry when I stopped. I realized I was doing the wrong thing. I begged for God to please take me back, but it was God who brought himself back to me, because I had basically hit rock bottom, and he rose me back up, and I asked for forgiveness and I got it, and God's wonderful in that way. And so if you think you've taken this dark path and you can't turn back, just remember that God will forgive you. He will. He's loving and wonderful. So you don't worry about that.
Well, that's definitely a great testimony. Thank you, Christy. And we are discussing, of course, this year's also ritual, which they have devised for the night of Halloween. That is something that we're going to go into in a moment. But let me remind the people who have just tuned in what we are discussing here. I mean, aside from the political rivalries, aside from the fact that we are really touching a moment of unprecedented tension in American politics, because it seems like everybody, since the arrival of social networks, wants to have a say in politics, wants to maybe share their views. It's become even more divided, our society. And I must say that the left side of things, the leftists, are really intolerable. I mean, I want to show you something here before we go back to our subject, something regarding Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, who has basically said that anybody who will go to the rally in Madison Square Garden is a Nazi.
What?
That you'll see next week, Caitlin, is Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. I write about this in my book. President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it.
Now, this is a rhetoric that if pursued further and if encouraged by people like Kamala or Hillary, will definitely bring other assassination attempts on Trump's path. Because these people, even when Kamala was asked in the last few hours about it, she didn't have the courage to say there is no justifiable violence admitted in our presidential run-up here. But when instead she said that it was justified, the criticism of Trump, who she accuses to be Hitler, who she accuses to be a fascist. Now, I come from a country where fascism was a real thing. I come from a country which basically today uses fascist methods and at the same time has a communist judiciary, and everything that can be wrong with Italy was experienced by myself. In the end, I had to flee the country in 2019 with Christie because we could no longer reside there. So I know about real fascism, real communism, not a joke, as Joe Biden would say. And to be here in front of these liars, well, I was actually happy to see what Mike Adams said, because Mike Adams is the present mayor of New York City, and he went on record saying, when he was asked this question, he said basically that no, he doesn't think Trump is a fascist. And he actually invited he's a Democrat mayor of New York, and he invited all the sides to calm down the rhetoric, especially the Democratic side, because there's a lot of anti-Semitism that these days is being encouraged, especially by the left, by people like Alexander Ocasio-Cortez and all those kind of people. And also the alternative media that sides with this anti-Israel, anti-Jewish rhetoric. So I was very happy when Mayor Eric Adams said the following things.
Mr. Mayor, I wondered if I could ask you about any communications you've been having with the Trump campaign about this rally or otherwise, and if you believe, as others have said, that the former president is a fascist.
You know, I have been had those terms hurled at me by some political leaders in the city, using terms like Hitler and fascist. My answer is no. I know what Hitler has done, and I know what a fascist regime looks like. I think, as I've called over and over again, that the level of conversation, I think we could all dial down the temperature. And I've heard people say that the former president should not be able to have a rally in Madison Square Garden. I strongly disagree. This is America. This is New York. And I think it's important that we allow individuals to exercise their right to get their message clear to New Yorkers. And our job as a city and as a police department is to make sure they could do that in a peaceful way. I think that we must be extremely cautious. The heat we turn up today, pre-election, is going to have to be the heat we're going to have to govern it. And I think we need to show a level of respectable communication. And so when people called me fascist and other terminologies, I didn't like it. And I don't think it's fitting to anyone to state that the former president is equal to being Hitler. I just think that this is a city where we have the largest Jewish population. Anti-Semitism is on a rise nationally. We need to do everything we can to push back on that level of anti-Semitic tone and anti-Semitic issues that we're facing in the city. Let's have a safe, fair, democratic process and show the globe how we're able to do it correctly.
I think that his words are
he's good.
Highly shared. I mean, I think he said the right things. Absolutely.
You don't usually not liking him very much.
No, I don't usually like Democrats, but it seems like now at the local level, some Democrats like him. But even the governor of the state of New York is starting to distance themselves from this woke derangement, Trump derangement syndrome, which is...
so many New Yorkers are voting for Trump.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really happy about that.
Absolutely. And we are at the moment broadcasting live from Palm Springs, California, which is a city which has, unfortunately, a lot of witches, a lot of warlocks, a lot of leftists, a lot of idiots. They have shops like the ones we showed earlier. This is unfortunate, but we are fighting against evil. These people might not realize they are evil, but they are, absolutely. And at one point, I remember when Tucker was still on Fox News, he even had one of these witches on his show, the Oracle of LA, which is one of these demented witches that has been participating to this magic for the resistance started by this Freemason who claims to be Christian, but in reality is a Satanist and is actually connected to chaos,
Why do you have to put the
magic.
Statue of Liberty on the front of that book?
He even has the symbol of the Statue of Liberty with the pentagram behind.
How dare he?
And then he also uses the symbol of chaos magic.
What a dickhead.
I mean, this guy is the typical example of modern Freemasons, and that's why one of the reasons why I no longer go in Masonic lodges.
President Trump doesn't always do what people expect him to do or even what his supporters want him to do. Is he being unpredictable, or could there be another cause, perhaps a magical one? Amanda Yates Garcia is the Oracle of Los Angeles. She says she's a witch, tarot card reader, spellcaster, energy healer, intuitive medium, shamanic practitioner, and magical life coach. Last night, she helped cast a so-called binding spell on our president to prevent him from causing harm to others. We've asked many witches to come on this program, but only Amanda Yates Garcia was brave enough to accept our invitation. She joins us tonight from Los Angeles. Amanda, thank you for coming on tonight. I just had a panic communication, the commercial break, with one of my producers, Alex, who said, be nice to her. I don't want to spell on me. So I hope that you'll pull back on your powers and spare our staff. What does this mean exactly, that you cast a binding spell on the president?
Binding spells are like any other spell, so they're a symbolic action used to harness the powers of the imagination and achieve a tangible result eventually. Yeah.
And what was the result that you desired?
Well, I desire that Trump stop harming people that I care about and instituting policies that also harm me or other people that I care about. So my ultimate aim is that we protect the people that we love from having harm done to them. But in the meantime, I think what's really important is that we create a sense of solidarity and...
Oh, sense of solidarity. Oh. Well, let me show you one thing here. I mean, as you know, I published an article today, and within the article, I also include a citation, which I picked up from an article that was published by the mainstream media, in which there was actually a witch that was warning against this kind of thing, because this kind of thing could backlash. And so let me show you a second what this witch has said just a couple of days ago against these new attempts to sabotage Trump magically. See, Christy, we have here a self-proclaimed witch, and they're saying that in recent months, potential evidence has emerged that shows so-called witches discussing whether they should cast spells against Trump ahead of the 2024 presidential election. Then we had confirmation about them from other publications, but I like what this woman said, and maybe you can read it.
Okay, I hate to say this, but don't do magic against him. He has a form of protection surrounding him that feeds off of magic done against him. You will have better results if you focus your magic on helping his opponent or protecting yourself and others. I wish it would work to bind him or do a freezer spell, but you will only be helping him.
So this seems to be a more knowledgeable witch. Knows very well that Trump is surrounded by chains of prayer, Christians, Jews. Today, even Muslims, I said, are supporting Donald J. Trump, and we saw some of them even in Coachella. But today,
oh yeah, that was so great. It said Muslims for Trump.
Yeah, but we also had
so
today
big.
official representatives of the Muslim community who actually joined Trump during a rally and gave their open support. Why is that? Because when you are promoting values that are profoundly anti-human as well as anti-religious, I mean, we are talking about woke values that are completely I mean, they don't align neither with Christianity, neither with Judaism, but even with Islam. So religious people know that Satan is actually involved. And I was quite touched, and that's why I briefly cited also the latest statement made by somebody that I like, Archbishop Vigano. Some consider him a former archbishop after he was excommunicated by Pope Francis, but I think that's actually a badge of honor for an archbishop. So Archbishop Vigano wrote an open letter to the American Catholics where he described Kamala Harris as an infernal monster, basically.
Infernal monster?
Yes, as an infernal monster, and who obeys Satan. He said it very clearly. I'm addressing all of you, I'm quoting Vigano, a few days before the presidential election that will call millions of American citizens to the polls. Even in conditions of relative normality, the exercise of the vote is your moral duty. So he's inviting people to vote. But further on, he said, in Donald Trump's America, every Catholic can practice their faith and educate their children without interference from the state. And not only Catholics. Like I said, every religion is recognizing that the Democrats want to become in charge of your children.
Except the Satanists.
Not only that, guys. These are Satanists. And for them, abortion is a human sacrifice. That's why Kamala invited a bunch of doctors who take care of abortions on the stage with her. And during that really shameful performance with these doctors on stage, somebody fell sick. and that somebody who felt sick was not helped by the doctors who have a moral immediate duty. They took an oath to protect people. See these leftist Satanists who are no longer to be considered the doctors, but Satanists.
Necessarily becoming ill and dying. Nationwide, I think someone needs some medical assistance over here.
Instead of intervening, they are watching, like, you as doctors intervene. That's your job, first of all, not selling this propaganda where you want to carry on abortions, which are human sacrifices in the name of these Democrats, because that's how it is, guys. That's how it is. Please share this show on your social networks of choice. At the moment, we have a few people on X, on Rumble, but we still have a few people also on our YouTube, and we will invite those people to join us on X and Rumble for the second part of this show, which will start very soon. But let's continue to understand these witches in these confrontations from a few years ago with Tucker Carlson.
Empowerment within the people who are participating in the spell to galvanize them towards action so that they can feel empowered to make the changes that they want to see in the world.
Most people just go ahead and vote or like buy a T-shirt. Is this legal? Can you run around casting spells on? Are you allowed to cast spells on people? Is there any kind of federal regulation of this?
Well, okay, so symbolic action is something that everybody participates in all the time, right? So you might think, oh, that doesn't really have any meaning. But if that were true, then, for instance, why would people care whether or not people saluted the flag or sang the national anthem? That's also symbolic action. And that kind of symbolic action does have power. And that's why people care about it. So while I don't think that any witch is thinking, oh, this is the only action that is necessary to prevent Trump from enacting his mean policies, I think that they're hoping that by doing these symbolic actions that will galvanize people to resist with our hearts, with our full hearts.
So since you're the only witch, I've interviewed a lot of people, but I've never interviewed a witch. Sincere question, is eye of newt an actual ingredient?
Well, I think the real problem is not whether or not eye of newt is an actual ingredient. The real problem is we're about to have some kind of big nuclear extravaganza with North Korea. The real problem is that we're punishing immigrant children. The real problem is that we're
right. I mean, there are lots of problems, but that's still
to go into deep debt. Okay. I don't think the real problem is whether or not we use eye of newt in our
I'm not suggesting it's a problem, and I'm with you on the student debt, by the way, completely. I don't think Trump did that, but whatever. But it doesn't get to my question, which is eye of newt an actual thing or not?
Eye of newt, isn't that from Shakespeare? So I think he was probably using a little bit of poetic license. Most witches today use whatever we have available to us. For instance, candles and paper.
Does it ever worry you? I mean, by the way, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. I don't think that the only things that exist are the things that we can see. There clearly is a supernatural. I don't understand it, but I wonder if you're ever worried about the consequences of, bluntly, fooling around with things that nobody really understands. I'm sincere. Do you ever worry about that?
You know, a lot of people ask me that, whether or not I worry about the supernatural consequences of what I'm doing. I mean, I trust that what I'm doing is for the greatest good of all concerned, because that's what I hold in my heart. That's what all these witches are doing this for, is because they have the pure intention of creating good in the world, to make a more beautiful loving, whole, healthy world. And so that's the intention that they're doing this work. So nobody's worried that it's gonna backfire on them, because nobody's doing this spell to cause Trump harm.
So you think, I'm not even talking about Trump, I just mean in general. Oh no, I don't think you are. But you think good intentions will protect you? I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of spooky, but you seem nice, and I'm glad that you came on.
If you need a lesson, Carlson.
No, I don't. Scares me.
Well, actually, Tucker was completely correct. These are scary things that these people present as very light, as very normal. They're Satanists. Now, this month, on the eve of Halloween, something unprecedented will take place. 100 women, with many probably joining on the day, because the organizers sent out like 25,000 emails. Across the whole of the US, they have been invited to virtually gather on Zoom and light their yellow candles for another infamous ritual. It's a different ritual from the one they have been conducting up until now, which is based on the rituals and spell for changes of Michael M. Hughes. This creepy ritual on the evening of the festival of Samhain, or however you want to call it, is an ancient Celtic pagan festival about 2,000 years old, is always considered a special moment by Satanists, so they can perform the magical rituals that will favor their goals. Halloween has long been claimed for this reason as the high holy day of satanic worship. The Satanic Temple also, not only the Church of Satan, seems to list it as one of their official days during their satanic calendar. This is the day where witches and warlocks have really unleashed hell. They gather to praise their leader and extend his work on earth. Their leader is Satan. Now, festivities are marked by unprecedented. This kind of festivity is marked by unprecedented evil and blasphemy. And they can be blood sacrifices, they can be various kind of rituals that are conducted. For this reason, guys, Anton LaVey, when he died, he was the founder of the Church of Satan in the year 1966. Well, Anton LaVey, who died on October 29, his followers went to the extent of changing his death certificate to list the date as Halloween 1997, October 31, 1997. So they could link him to this festivity, and officially he died on October 31st, 1997. Now, what is this ritual that they want to put together? First of all, who is putting together this ritual? This ritual is being put together by evil witches who collaborate with Illuminati and Satanists like Michael M. Hughes. In this case, a woman called Wendy Hausman, a DC-based witch who has left her corporate career to practice witchcraft full-time. Now, she leads a coven of professionals that are lawyers, doctors, and executives, according to her at least. And she is more like in a coven that is reminiscent of Rosemary's Baby kind of thing. It's an elite coven, she claims. So she has put together this ritual, which she is going to connect these witches and warlocks from all over the US that are anti-Trump on the eve of Halloween with the eye closed. The anti-Trump witches will create an egregore and visualize a future where Kamala Harris is president. So this each will focus on this vision, while the candle symbolizes clearing obstacles for Harris' path to victory. The egregore is obvious here, and it's a force that I've been discussing often in my books, starting from Volume 1, The Invisible Master, and also other books in which I always mention the fact that the Illuminati gave a lot of importance, and also the Freemasonry, to this concept of fourth form, the egregore. and it's like I said, a collective thing that you can only put together with and so she said that the more they, that's why she's sending out 25,000 mails to her mailing list, because she said that the more they are, and the stronger the magic is. So the more future casters there are, the more they can reach their objective, which is to bring Kamala to the White House. There has been recent articles by various newspapers, including the LA Times, about this rehashing this witchcraft against Trump. However, the LA Times, the Washington Post, The Nation, these are leftist newspapers whose owners have basically refused to endorse. They have imposed on their newspapers to not endorse Kamala. Even, The Nation is it's totally leftist, but they don't want to endorse Kamala. They know that Kamala probably will lose. Now, we don't have much time before all hell breaks loose after that, because you see, there is a political Vesuvius that is about to erupt, yes, like a volcano. Up until the 5th of November, everybody is relatively tranquil, but they are turning to the supernatural now, because they're obviously worried. They're very worried. And the left is getting more and more desperate. And like Mayoko, who is a professor, said, that they are looking to tip the scales in their favor, using whatever means possible. So this is something that is happening, that in a way we need to monitor also the fact that there is this situation, and hopefully we can avoid, of course, the eruption of this Vesuvius, of this volcano of hate that is kind of building up, especially when you are casting Trump in the role of villain, accusing him of being an existential threat to the Republic. Now, we need to keep on praying for Trump, of course. This is very important. And at the same time, we need to also be fairly critical of their attempts that are continuous to just, blatantly say that Trump is a fascist, that he's unfit. It's not the way things should be conducted in the United States of America.
I feel like we're on some kind of like they have these movies where they show the future and this dystopian future, and like we're like the future looking back on ourselves, and you have this like political race that's so hate filled, and you know what I mean? It just seems like a movie plot.
Sure, check this out.
Breaking news. This race is now a tie. And so it's interesting. Conservatives don't support Donald Trump. So they probably are thinking Harris is going to win. But Trump Republicans will look at the polls they want to look at. Harris supporters will look at the polls that they want to look at. But I just want to say there's been some chatter about this October surprise, that maybe it was Michael Schmidt's reporting or Jeffrey Goldberg's reporting that was an October surprise. Maybe it was that Kamala Harris said that he was a fascist, or maybe more importantly, it was Donald Trump's longest serving chief of staff who said that Donald Trump was, yes, indeed, a fascist. And also the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Donald Trump's last chairman of the Joint Chiefs, said Donald Trump was a fascist to the core. those aren't really the October surprises. The October surprises, Willie, are not what everybody else is saying about Donald Trump. And I understand there's some pathetic people out there.
Yep.
Some pathetic people that are trying to cozy up to Donald Trump.
You are pathetic. I mean, this guy's so completely. The Morning Joe is the most biased, idiotic show on TV, and he is lying because CNN is actually confirming that Trump will win the popular vote. This is CNN. I mean, we're not talking about Fox. We're not talking about Newsmax. We're talking about CNN. And CNN saying something like this, it's kind of remarkable. Check it out.
Get his great white whale. Harris versus Trump national march. And you mentioned that New York Times poll, a tie. That's actually right in the middle of the spectrum when we're talking about recent polling data. You don't have to look very far to find Donald Trump ahead nationally. He was up by 2 points in the CNBC poll, up by 3 in the Wall Street Journal poll. Very close races within the margin of error. But then the same thing on the other side, right? You have Harris up by 3 points according to Ipsos. The Say 24 YouGov poll, it's a bunch of academics, also has Harris up by 3. But the bottom line is, with the popular vote, which we really haven't focused upon, a very, very tight race, John. Fact is, Donald Trump is very much in a position he could win the popular vote, which, of course, is something he would absolutely love to do.
And would be something very different than we have seen compared to last time and the polling compared to last time.
So, what is this guy saying on MSNBC?
We're trying to blame Jeffrey Goldberg or trying to blame General Kelly.
You can blame whatever.
Quote, October surprise that they're making up. Of course, imagine that.
It's a joyful campaign, but it is reflecting off.
A joyful campaign from which side? Sorry, I don't get it. Joyful for who?
Who they are running against. A dark, dismal, fascist, and increasingly obviously fascist person.
They're so full of it. Everything they say is the opposite of what's true. Everything is the opposite. It's all
people
upside
are
down and backwards.
Complete Satanists.
Just take what they say and reverse it.
No, but MSNBC has lost any credibility if they ever had any. I don't think they ever had any. I think at least CNN, especially after the recent debate this week where Kamala was actually drilled by one of their anchors, I think that CNN is realizing the reality of this election more than MSNBC, which is a complete I mean, this is political thuggery, it's not journalism.
So I went back through the time machine, all right? I went back through the time machine to see where were the past 2 races at this point in the campaign. Look, Harris in the average poll right now is up by 1, well within the margin of error. You go back 4 years ago, Joe Biden was well ahead of Donald Trump in the national popular vote polls. He was up by 9. Even Hillary Clinton was up by 6 points. So now Donald Trump's in a position he really hasn't been before at this point in the campaign where he could truly compete, and we can truly say that the popular vote at this point is way too close to call. Of course, this is only going back 8 years. I wanted to jump even further back in my time machine to get an understanding. Hey, I haven't heard about a Republican potentially winning the popular vote in a while. And it turns out a Republican winning the popular vote, it hasn't happened since 2004 in George W. Bush defeating John Kerry. And that's only the one time that it has happened. In fact, you have to go all the way back to 1988 to find another one when it was George W. Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, winning the popular vote over Michael Dukakis. So the fact that the polls right now are so close, John, the fact that Donald Trump has a legitimate shot of winning the popular vote is something I think a lot of folks, including in my line of work, really didn't think could possibly happen when Donald Trump was running last time around. He could make history, not just for Donald Trump, for a Republican candidate as well.
Now, there are some reasons for this, and I think Democrats' heads are all exploding. out there watching this right now. There are some reasons for this, which you're going to explain, but also begin to raise the possibility that we could see the reverse. We could see the reverse of things we've seen, where a Republican wins the popular vote, but there's a chance for the Democrat to win the Electoral College.
Yeah, part of my job is to warn our viewers on either side of the aisle of an event that may occur that they don't necessarily like, and Donald Trump winning the popular vote could absolutely happen. You might as well wrap your minds around it now, folks, if you don't like Donald Trump. But on the flip side of that, a potentially good sign for Democrats is, why is Donald Trump doing so well in the popular vote polls? You can dig down into the state level polling and you can see that Donald Trump is doing particularly well in California, Florida, New York, and Texas. Of course, none of these states are really on the board at this point, so Donald Trump may end up gaining in the national popular vote polls, but actually he's wasting votes, which could in fact lead to a case where Kamala Harris could sneak by in the Electoral College by sweeping those Great Lake battleground states, which at this point are way too close to call, John.
That's right. It'd be interesting to see then if all that talk about Electoral College reform takes on a bit of a new light.
It may. In 2000, remember, folks thought that Al Gore would win the Electoral College and losing the popular vote. It turns out they were all wrong.
No, that ended. So here we are at the end of part one of our show. We have been discussing, of course, this ritual that they suddenly want to put together to bind or block Trump. I mean, we are in front of a very incredible situation here. I mean, it seems like almost a repetition, no, of what happened the last time. But also a repetition of what happened when Trump won the first term, and leftist party leaders will refuse to accept the election. Soros will unleash his army of thugs on the American streets. An army of democratic lawyers will also, of course, is already waiting instructions on how and where to challenge the results. And of course, they were also floating the idea that there is going to be a civil war. And actually, the Democrats, if they retake the House, they might use the 14th Amendment to claim that he is a January 6th insurrectionist, and they will not accept to install him in the White House. I mean, there is possibilities that will inevitably lead to social unrest, chaos on both sides. So we really need to be careful, and we hope that things will stay civil. But also, when I go around and I see how these people behave against simply a guy who wears a MAGA hat or a MAGA T-shirt, these people have no tolerance. These people have no idea of what it means having, being in a democracy, even if this is a constitutional republic, to have a dialogue that is, of course, in the end, a dialogue, but is also decided by the vote of all of us that have received these ballots, and that, of course, are going to cast our vote. Now, from today, we can cast our vote also here in Palm Springs. But the thing is, guys, there are already so many frauds being reported left, right, and center. So these people are definitely criminals. And in the end, if they push too much, they will end up for real with a civil war. So when I see the kind of rhetoric that the left is pushing, when I see articles like, for example, the one that was published by the British Independent, it was pretty fascinating. I mean, this is a British publication, very popular also here in the US. Historically known newspaper. Never mind Trump losing the election, American next civil war has already started. This is how it will end. And they're saying, of course, a book that has been written about the possibility of a civil war. And at this time, they're citing also the movie Civil War, which was a very bad movie, by the way. Terrible movie. Terrible movie, but it is these people who are pushing the narrative, and their narrative now it's also quite scary, because when you go and read this article from the Independent, there is certain passages that really make us understand the kind of psyop they're pushing through these articles, the cognitive warfare they're pushing through these articles. Let me show you here. Stephen Mark began writing a book that imagined a future civil war in the United States of America, found himself having to throw out large chunks of text because the very things he conjured on the page suddenly happened in real life. Then there is something in the air, in the streets, and even on our screens in the form of Alex Garland's recent Civil War, the movie, which imagines a dystopian future. The American presidency has become a dictatorship and rebels descend on the White House. I mean, this whole thing about Mark, the author of this book, saying that the first civil war happened in the 1860s, very few people in America saw it coming, so we should be ready ourselves for what is coming. This guy is a Canadian. He shouldn't even open his mouth, because Canadians have never done 1776. They have always been submissive. And I have a whole chapter in my new book, volume 11, about how Canadians have been brainwashed first with MK Ultra, with the Montreal experiments, and then later on with experiments of cognitive warfare during the pandemic. Now, I see you in part 2 of this show that we will be broadcast exclusively on X and Rambo, because we have some content that we can't broadcast here on Facebook and YouTube. So I see you after, of course, the musical break that we have. And it's going to be interesting, guys, part 2. Very interesting. So get ready. We're going to be talking also about some recent UFO stuff that's been happening that is also very demonic in nature, as you know. Here we go with the musical break by Vincenzo Viceversa, who is also the author of these beautiful covers, aside from great music and the visuals of Albert.
In that time, our world has taken so many steps in the wrong direction. In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization, dehumanization. In the negative utopia,